Good evening, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines and what I've started calling the relationship series, and this is part 2. And this deals with something that we foreigners don't seem to have much of a handle on, and that is staying calm. Now, why do we get upset? Well, in the West, if something doesn't go quite right, what you do is you start getting mad. And when you start getting mad, it's what foreigners, Westerners like to call the squeaky wheel technique. And that is, you go in and you start getting mad with people and you tend to get handled. Do you always get handled in the right way? No, you don't. In fact, isn't that a popular saying, never get mad with your waiter? Because he is the one that is the in-between, the go-between man holding the plate of food that you are going to sink your angry teeth into. And it's not a wise move. Well, how does it work out staying calm when you're married to a Filipino or have a Filipina girlfriend? Well, they don't get mad like we do. They do get angry, but it's not the same. And they don't get mad about small stuff. Now, when, for instance, I've only ever seen one Filipina get mad and actually confront someone and go up there and say, hey, this is not right, and so on. I was standing at the ATM machine, and the young woman in front of me in a baseball cap and a ponytail, and she just got off a motorcycle. She's standing there and she sees somebody using 2 or 3 or 4 ATM cards. Now what happens here is that in a full community spirit, if somebody is going to the ATM and it's government grant day, what will happen is that Mr. Gomez will be given 4 or 5 cards, and he will know all of the passwords, and he'll go up to the ATM machine. So here we are, here's us guys standing behind Mr. Gomez, and what we don't know is that Mr. Gomez is really, it's not Mr. Gomez, it's 5 other people as well. So it's not just he's not just one person, he's 5 people, and they're all going to take 3 or 4 or maybe 5 minutes to process their account. So you soon start to get the idea when he steps up to the first with the first card and he surreptitiously puts it in from his wallet, and you go dee-doo-doo, bing, and then he looks at the screen, and then he goes BDD, and then BDDDDDDD, and then some money comes out, and he folds it and he puts it in his top pocket along with a card and the statement. But he doesn't step away from it. Then he reaches in and he gets another card, and he puts that in, and you hear it, dee-doo-doo, dee-dee-doo, dee-doo, ping, dee-doo-doo, dee, dee-doo-doo, dee-dee-doo, dee-dee, and it goes on. With this one he's got to inquire if the money is there, so it's an awful lot longer. So 5 or 6 minutes later he goes ping and he gets some money out, and then he puts that in his top pocket along with the statement and the card. Now we're all so relieved he's going to step away from Why is he doing that again? Dee-doo-doo, dee-dee-dee. It's become like a signature tune. Well, the lady in front of me, who was like about 24 or 25, she didn't like this idea. So she went up to him and said, in her own language of course, "Excuse me, what are you doing? What about everybody that's standing behind?" You know, and she gave the man a hard time, and eventually he backed down and he left to go and join the queue at a later time, I would suggest. Well, she was mad and she had showed it, but it's rare. See, all of the rest of the people behind didn't say anything, probably because more than a few of them had 4 or 5 of their own cards as well. So that was why. Now, why would we choose to be calm in the face of something like that? Well, because it doesn't actually earn you any points, and it doesn't keep you feeling happy when you do these confrontational assaults in the country of a nation who don't do it. Now, I've heard various expats say that, yeah, well, they're just sheeples, aren't they? They're just, you know, they're just sheep. They just don't say anything, and they won't say anything, even though someone has behaved badly. They won't say anything, and they dismiss it not as a quality but as a fault. And sooner or later you might begin to think that maybe it's not a fault, because if in the course of your relationship with this lovely Filipina, whether a girlfriend or a wife or a mother-in-law or a sister-in-law or a brother-in-law, you'll find that life goes much, much easier if you button it a little bit and don't say anything straight away. Now, there's a very good reason for this, is that because you are cruising along and you may as well be doing it in total silence if you don't speak the language. To my shame, I have not learned enough of the language, and I'm struggling to try. But if you have no intention, as many expats have, of ever learning the language, then you're in a kind of a vacuum of silence because you don't understand anything. So it's just like, that's why I call my mother-in-law machine gun nanai, because when she goes, and it sounds like a machine gun. Well, you don't know what's happening, and some subtle thing that is related to the non-confrontational way that Filipinos have, and the way of just going with the flow and not making a fuss, means that they maintain a much happier, saner equilibrium than you, with your way of losing your cool and being anything but calm, because you think from your training in the West that it's going to get things done. But as soon as you start to do that, the shoulders are going to come up, and that very person that you need to get the problem solved, say at immigration or at a store or anywhere like that, is saying under their breath in Tagalog, and they're not going to help you. And once you start to get aggravated with your lady, that's going to happen too. So you keep everything calm and you wait until what's really happening is conveyed to you via those parts of the English language that they are able to show. And they're not going to try to explain everything, because there are just some things which they just don't believe that you are capable of understanding. And after 4 years of trying to understand everything, I'm beginning to think that they're right. So, stay calm. Be cool. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. Good luck in your relationship. It will be worth it. Bye for now.